Now let's discuss alkynes. So remember, we have talked about alkanes, which the general formula is CnH2n plus 2. So we've talked about alkenes, in which the general formula is CnH2n. And now we want to talk about alkenes. So the surface for alkenes is for alkynes is YNE. Just like surface for alkanes is ANE. Those are the only thing you will be changing. Alkenes is ENE. So now alkynes is what? YNE. So take note. Now the general formula for alkyne is CnH2n minus 2. So that is the general formula for alkynes. So now let's name just like the other ones. So remember, one carbon will say met. Now the surface is YNE, so it ends with YNE. That is methane. So now let's say we want to find the structural pattern for methane. So we have CnH2n minus 2. So this is Cn. So if n is 1, so C1 H2 bracket 1 minus 2. So that is C1 H2 minus 2. C1 H0. So meaning one carbon and no hydrogen. So it's not possible. So that means methane does not exist. So methane does not exist. So it's not possible to draw the structural pattern. So now let's say ethane. Remember, number 2 for 2 carbon is eth. So like what I did in alkanes. So go and watch again. Eth. So but because it's alkyne, so it will be ethane. So now for ethane, so we have CnH2n minus 2. So that means N is 2. So C2 H2 bracket 2 minus 2. So C2 H4 minus 2. C2 H2. So that means the general the formula for ethane is C2H2. So that will be C2H2. So now how can you now draw the structural pattern? So I have 2 carbons. And remember, each carbon must have 4 bonds. Normal. So each carbon must have 4 bonds. But now I have 2 hydrogen alone. So that means I have 1 hydrogen here, another 1 hydrogen here. So I have 2 hydrogens. Now if I have 2 hydrogens, so the bond for hydrogen here is 1. The bond for hydrogen here is also 1. But bond for carbon here is bond for carbon here is 2. So 1, 2. And bond for carbon here is also 2. So it's not balanced. So now, and carbon must have 4. And I cannot put another bond there. If you put another bond there, it means hydrogen will have 2 bonds and it's wrong. So hydrogen must have 1 bond. So if you know the number of bonds each element can have, then you can draw correct structural pattern. Remember, in alkanes I've explained everything. So their valency is always the number of bonds they can have. Carbon is in group 4, so the valency is 4, so it must have 4 bonds. Nitrogen is in group 5, but the valency is 3, so the bond must be three, 3 bonds, because the valency is 3. So watch all the videos on how to name binary compound and others, so you know this one. So now I'll place triple bonds here. Why? Because if I place 3 here plus this one, 1 plus 3 making 4, so carbon have 4 bonds there. Again, this carbon have 4 bonds here. So hydrogen have 1, hydrogen have 1. So this is correct. So this is the correct way of writing ethynes. So C2H2. So that is it. So that means for alkynes, so you have triple bonds. Remember, for alkanes you have single bond. For alkenes you have double bonds. So for alkynes now you have triple bond, so as shown here. And you know the condition for the bonds, so carbon must have 4 bonds, so that is how it is. So now let's see another one. So 3 is prop, so that will be propine. So let's say pro 3. Remember, I'm not naming now, I'm only talking about alkanes, alkenes, alkynes and their general formula. After everything, all the functional group, after all the functional group, then we are going to start naming organic compound, that is for any compound, so it will be easier. But for now, let's talk about it one by one, just their general formula. So now prop is 3, so we have propine, so that will be C3H23 minus 2. So C3H6 minus 2, so that will be C3H4. So we have 3 carbons, 1 2 3, and 4 hydrogen. Let's say 1 2 here, 1 2 here, 1 2. Now if you look at this very well, how many carbon do you have? 3. So 3 carbons. Each hydrogen have 1 bond, but now the carbon have 3 bonds. Yeah, so it's not balanced. The carbon here have 3 bonds, it's not balanced. So and we need triple bond, so we need triple bonds. Yeah, so please for now be placing the bonds after first carbon throughout. If we start naming, the position of the triple bond will be mentioned, but for now place it in 1, so we can have a time propine like that. Place it after 1. Is either you place it here or you place it here. Let it be after 1 carbon. Remember, I'm not naming now, I'm only talking about the alkane, alkenes, alkyne and their general formula. I'm not really naming, so if we start naming, this position we'll take it into consideration. Please take notes. For now, just understand this. So now, how many bonds do you have here? 1 2 plus 3 5, so it's too much. The number of bonds you should have for carbon is 4, so you should remove 1 hydrogen like that. So if you remove 1 hydrogen, that means the number of bonds for carbon is now complete, that is 4. The number of bonds for this carbon is also complete, 4, but the number of this carbon is 1 2 3. So the hydrogen I removed there, I can place it here making 4. So that means the number of bonds of this carbon is 4, that is 1 2 3 4. The number of bonds of this carbon is 4 also, 3 plus 1 4. The number of bonds of this carbon is also 3 plus 1 4. So that means everything is balanced now. hydrogen here have one bond, one bond, one bond, one bond, so it's balanced. So this is correct way of writing propine. So like that. So this H, if you like, you may not put it like this. If you like, don't do it that way. If you like, place it this way. Anyhow, the number of bond is still 4. So like that, that is propine. So now the next one I'll include now is alkyl group. So I'll do it in this video. Alkyl. So the alkyl group. Now for alkyl is just one shortage of hydrogen from alkanes. Remember, alkanes is CnH2n plus 2. This is for alkanes. So alkyl now will be CnH2n plus 1. That is, instead of plus 2, it will be plus 1. So it's short of one hydrogen from alkanes. Take note. So that means the same way you have methane, met is one carbon. So this one will now be methyl now. The functional, the surface is YL. So met is 1. So second one is ethyl, as in like that. So for methyl now, we have CnH2n plus 1. That will be C1H21 plus 1. That will be C1H3. That is 2 times 1, 2 plus 1, 3. So methyl is CH3. Remember, methane is CnH2n plus 2. So if n is 1, that will be C1 H 2 times 2, 4 plus 2, 6. So methane, so that is from alkane. Methane is CH4. So now if you have methane as CH4, now look at methyl is now CH3. You say 3, 4 is short of one hydrogen. So anytime you have one short of hydrogen from alkane, then you have the alkyl group. So the general formula is CnH2n plus 1. So like that. So to name, we'll first count the number of carbon. So if you know the number of carbon, you can now know maybe it's met, earth, prop, boots, and like that. We will still name, but for now, understand this. So this is alkyl. So I'll continue in another video. So I'm talking about their functional groups now. So I'll do alkanol next.